So I don't see Khoudia, but I think she can join us. Anyway, welcome to this session on community networks. I would like to start by presenting the various the presenters. So we have here three distinguished panelists. The first one is Verengai Mabika, who is Senior Policy Advisor at the Internet Society. Verengai joined the Global Public Policy Team as Senior Policy Advisor for Africa in 2017. He has been part of Internet Society Extended Family for several years, leading the creation of ISOC's chapter in Zimbabwe and joining ISOC delegation at the WTSA and later at the WTDC, I guess. The next speaker will be Victor Asante. Victor is Senior Manager at GIFEC in Ghana. Victor is a Senior Manager in charge of research and innovations at Ghana Universal Service Fund, the Ghana Investment Fund for Electronic Communication. He has been very active in the digital ecosystem, both in Ghana and abroad. He coordinated the first ever nationwide household digital device survey in 2003 and has been engaged subsequently in other projects, typically towards connecting the unconnected. You can read his full bio on the website. The last but not least panelist is Khoudia GUEYE. Khoudia is president of SenChix, and she's also founder in 2013 of SenChix, the Senegalese chapter of SenChix. SenChix aims to improve Senegalese women's life using ICT tools and technologies, and to engage more women and girls to develop expertise in computer science, networking, and software development. Again, you can read her full bio on the website. I will start by maybe saying a few things about community networks. This is an area where the Internet Society, by the way, myself, I am Regional Vice President for Africa for Internet Society. I've been working for Internet Society since 2006. And before that, I was working as assistant professor at Addis Ababa University. Just to say a few things about this session. This session is about connecting the unconnected using community networks. Why is it important? It is important because, as we have seen during the pandemic, internet is critical for everyone. Maybe before the pandemic, there were some doubts that not everyone needs it. But I think those doubts are no more there. We know that people need it to learn, to work, or even to meet with friends and families. And everyone needs it. You can be a woman, you have many things to do on the internet. You can be someone from the rural areas, and you might even need it more than people from the urban areas. But we have seen in the past that, unfortunately, there are some populations that are not connected, and that might not be connected for the coming years because they are not interesting for commercial operators. This is because they live in sparsely populated rural areas, for example, and they don't give the financial incentive that cities have, for example. Therefore, we believe that we need a complementary way to connect the unconnected. And we believe that the community networks are really a model that can be used in areas where, especially in areas where commercial operators are not interested to go. Without further ado, I would like to invite my colleague, Verengai Mabika, to speak about what the community networks are, and we'll continue with the other panelists after him. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dawit. Let me quickly share my screen. Please let me know if you can see this screen.
Yes, we do.
Okay, great. Thanks again, Dawit, and greetings, colleagues from wherever you are. Again, my name is Verengai Mabika, working with the Internet Society as Senior Policy Advisor for Africa. Today I'm quite glad to be joining colleagues from West Africa for this year West African IGF. And today session we are going to talk about some of our thinking around community networks, which we believe is a very important complementary solution to the connectivity problem that we currently have in the world. So just to pick up from where Dawit left, and also just to put this discussion into perspective, this graph will show you that the general internet users in the world globally, they're actually increasing gradually, and we are seeing this trend going up from the year 2001, and this graph goes to 2020, the year when we had the most difficult year with the COVID pandemic. You can see there that currently we have connected just about 40% of the world population is of today. This graph is not well up to date, but we have just connected about half of the global population to date, which means the greater part of the other half is still not yet connected. And with this graph, it shows the scenario. I want you to focus more on the African position there, which looks at the percentage of households with internet access currently, or maybe just a year ago in Africa, which is still very low compared to the global average. But most importantly for Africa, I think what's important here is that whilst we need to bridge the gap, we still very much way behind compared to the global average. And this is why we believe that the complementary solutions like the community networks really matters, and probably should be a center of discussion in recent years. So you may be quite familiar with the way the global economy or even the national economy works. And I've used this analog here of a glass filled with or a jar filled with stones. And if you look at that jar, it looks quite full. And this is exactly the scenario that we do have in most of our countries and in general globally, that the economy, our economy, including the internet economy, looks to be serviced by the major big players, especially when it comes to the connectivity. We are talking about the big telco companies. In most of the countries in Africa, you probably find that there are 3 to 4 in most of the countries, you would not even get more than 5 operators, big operators.
Verengai, I can't hear you. Is it just me or?
I can hear him too. On l'a perdu, on dirait.
Oui, on va attendre. I'm sorry, he is in Zimbabwe and sometimes there are some connectivity issues. Okay.
Hi, Dawit.
Hi. Okay, you're back.
Yes, I didn't realize I was cut off.
Yeah, for 30 seconds.
So really sorry about that. It really pains the African picture. Can you see my slide again?
Yes, we do.
Okay, good. Yeah, so I was just mentioning that smaller operators, we are getting to acknowledge that, the smaller pieces that are present in our communities are able to fill those smaller gaps and the smaller spaces. And this is where the concept of community network is becoming very relevant in the space of connectivity. And as a way of definition, we define community networks broadly as telecommunications infrastructure deployed and operated by the citizens to meet their own communications needs. You can look at this scenario and use other developmental issues that have happened before, and in Africa, especially in Africa, this concept has actually worked very well, where communities try to fill a particular gap. It could be a challenge with water or even with food, or with addressing a particular community need that is within their society. So this is why we believe that community networks could become very, very competitive and also very complementary, especially in filling those gaps that we see. And it may seem like the gaps are really small, but in actual fact, if you look at the statistics, we are talking about 60% of a population that is not connected. So in this presentation, I'll also just give you a quick update of what's happening in the African space with regards to community networks. So firstly, I just wanted to let you know that at the highest level of the political leadership of Africa, there is a recognition that community networks could actually fill this gap. And in 2019, at the Specialized Technical Committee on Communications, this is what we commonly refer to as the ministerial meeting, the ICT ministerial meetings, which happens once every 2 years. In 2019, this is where the last face-to-face meeting happened in Egypt. And they did, in their declaration, acknowledged that community networks should be explored, especially in countries that are having very low internet penetration rates, so that they could try to address, the connectivity need or the digital divide that happens in those countries. So this is one important development that we believe could encourage other countries, to move towards the direction of acknowledging that community networks could be a solution. And then secondly, again, in 2020, just picking up from the declaration that was made by the ministers of ICTs, we got into a partnership with the African Union, APC, Mozilla, and Internet Society, and African Telecommunications Union to start talking about some of the issues that could speed up the process of having these community networks. And some of the issues that we discussed last year were issues to do with where would the spectrum come from. We know that in the
Marqué par le fait que en termes de télécommunications, cela affecte la plupart des pays parce que nous pouvons avoir des spectres qui ne sont pas liés forcément à des licences qu'on peut octroyer.
That is required by community networks. So this was a build-up to the discussion that we did have with the ministers in 2019, which again points to a positive direction in terms of where the continent is going in acknowledging community networks. Just recently, the Digital Trends in Africa document, which is a very important document for our sector, sort of also documented the fact that community access points and especially community networks in hard to reach areas are a very important aspect of closing the digital gap. This is, of course, because of what Dawit mentioned in the opening, that we know that most of these big operators, there are places that they will not go. There are places that they will not go simply because these places will not make business sense for them to put it could be a mass or, or a base station. We know for a fact that many of these big players will not go there. They are costing compilations that have been done by many organizations where they look at the cost implications of, erecting and also maintaining a base station. And I think the average price that has been documented in Africa is around $3,000 per month per each base station. So if you are looking at a cost like that, you certainly need the necessary, user or user base that can, be able to offset that cost. So we are also seeing that in terms of what the ITU thinks and what all the member states are thinking, community networks could sort of help us speed up the closing the gap. And just quickly to looking at some specific countries, in Uganda last year, the Ugandan Communications Commission, they did provided a licensing framework for community networks, which becomes much easier for communities to start applying for licenses and be awarded, and also start to build their own networks within their spaces. So this is a very encouraging document, which is now law in Uganda. And this is not just happening in Uganda. In Zimbabwe, again this year, beginning of this year, I think it was in March, the regulator in Zimbabwe, Potras, also published a statutory instrument, a new statutory instrument that introduced community internet service provider license, and with a very limited cost of just about $50 to apply for a license and $50 to renew the license. We think that is very encouraging. And following that, one of the community network that we supported in Zimbabwe, called Murambinda Network, was officially launched by the Minister of ICT in Zimbabwe just last month, which again gives a very positive outlook to the space of community networks in Africa. So these are very positive developments that we are seeing. We understand, we also know that Kenya, just a few months back in May, they've also invited comments for a draft licensing framework for shared spectrum for community networks. Again, Kenya being one of the forefronters in terms of one of the front runners in terms of the leading the internet space in Africa. We are seeing an encouraging message coming from Kenya also to acknowledge that even though Kenya is connected more than 80% of its population to the internet, they still want to consider community networks as an alternative or a complementary solution to the gap that they still have. So this is very encouraging and quite positive. So I thought this would sort of help us shaping our discussion on community networks. But of course, outside of these positives that we are seeing, we also know that there's still a lot of challenges and obstacles for community networks to grow. So possibly we'll have some time to talk about this in this session. Back to you, Dawit.
Thank you very much, Verengai, for this enlightening presentation. I would like to call now Khoudia to tell us a little bit about the Women Connect SenChix project, as well as the WELMA community network in Senegal. Khoudia?
Thank you, Dawit. Bonjour tout le monde. I'm going to speak in French to explain more my presentation. Mon nom c'est Khoudia GUEYE, je suis présidente et cofondatrice de l'association SenChix
which is the chapter the Senegalese chapter of Arctic. I want to thank you for giving us this opportunity to participate in this panel, and to all the organizers of West Africa, the AGF. I thank all the organizers, and I'm saying good morning to everybody, to all the participants. And I'm going to rapidly share my screen. Can everybody see my screen? Thank you. I'm going over my slide. I'm going to give you the experience of WELMA, which is the network that was set in place by SenChix. Look at, let's see the agenda, what we shall go through. I'll talk about the global project, which is Women Collect Challenge, which is a USAID program, and Arctics had applied, and Senegal is one of the countries that is represented in the as part of the communities since 2018. Rapidly, Women Collect Challenge is a project that is implemented by the USAID, which enables us to have people connect, various communities connect. That is the unfavored communities. And the aim of this project is to build the capacity for the women, and the focus is on the women. So it's to build capacity of the women to set up these networks so that they will have connectivity to the disfavored communities. These are Senegal, Kenya, Morocco, and Namibia. The connectivity would be in the form of access to internet. It could be also access to mobile telephone or using other digital tools and services. The Women Collect Challenge is from ASFIX, and is made up of women, as you can see in the photograph. There's Dorcas Mokani from Kenya, Aaron from Kenya, and Dumont from Mozambique, and myself from Senegal, and a lady from Morocco. Indeed, the cast has carried out some judicious work. This project is in 3 phases. The first phase was launched in 2018 and had to choose 9 winners within AFIX. And in phase 2, 2019, they chose 3 winners. And phase 3, they started in 2020. There are 4 winners, including AFIX. So if you want more information on the project, you could go to their website, Women Connect Challenge. Now, let's talk about WELMA. Why WELMA? WELMA is a name that was a title, a name that was chosen. It was proposed and it was chosen by Adamaka, which is the project director. For each of the country, we have a project coordinator. For Senegal, it's Adamaka, and normally she should have been the one to make this presentation, but since she's not available, that's why I'm replacing her. WELMA uses its Women Empowerment, Leadership and Management Access. WELMA, in its own language, in Pula language, means do something that you are interested in, something that seduces you. So we chose this because it has to have a meaning in the local language, and we try to find the acronyms for them in English. WELMA is a project of a community network for community in Cambaren that is out of the Dakar region. There are 50,000 inhabitants. Within this project, we identified the various women in the area of processing of agricultural products, and who are also in restaurant and in microfinance, as well as fashion industry. We therefore try to build a community within the framework of Cameroon under the leadership of Adamaka. And we established a link between the women and the project. And we brought these women together within the community. And they work according to their capacities. We've carried out training for the young women. And in order to make the women visible and be able to get their products to the markets. And these are all very important. And when there's lack of visibility, the women are not able to get themselves known in the internet or be able to bring their various goods to the marketplace. And this is the objective of ELMA. ELMA is to set up a sustainable network to have a committed community and that is trained in the internet, and then have, of course, women who are connected, and then women that can improve online and also improve their competencies and entrepreneurship. This community network talked about changes within the local language and using various digital tools. And at the initial stage, some had never seen a computer, but by the time they got to be part of WELMA, they now have a better knowledge of the computers and the digital system. And then what is the methodology adopted to establish this network? Identify the problems that are important to the community for evacuating their goods. And then they have a business model, and to see how the ITC can help them find a solution. And also we had to look at the constraints and then be able to get the women to better valorize their work through the auspices of the digital system. And we had some training. We carried out the evaluation of human resources. We were able to look at their niveaus and their training. And we, within the community, we were also able to have young women trained and who are committed under the direction of Adamaka. And then we gave them training. And then they were involved in technical training. We looked at the various equipment that they needed to implement the project. And this project enabled us to know more about the concept of community networks. It was new to us, and we had to learn the best services within the community network. As far as the achievements are concerned, the network was launched on the 6th of November 2019. We had, on this slide, you see the network that was created, and they can see women working with plastics here, but due to lack of means, this was not totally implemented. It was just the internet expert that was fully implemented during the launching. So we need partners to come to our aid. Here you have some the pictures showing Adamaka, who was the main leader, and there were also the young women who accompanied her. The photograph that is to the left, this was when they went around the community to get the women involved in the fisheries industry. Still on the achievements, we set up a network of 40 megabytes on, and we set up technical training that is led by Adamaka and myself. We had to work with these young women so that they themselves can manage the networks, so that if we're not here, if we're not there, they should be able to manage the network and be able to be on their own. So we trained women to use the community network. So we brought together all the women in the Cambarian community. To end, I will give you the prospects. Our objective is to cover all the Cameroon geographical area and then extend this to the various areas that are highlighted before now, and then build capacity of the young women so that they will work effectively with the network so that it will be sustainable and it will be managed by the Welma community to develop a platform for sale of their products within the community. And then, of course, they'll be able to develop a business within the network. And we made reference to the various difficulties that we were faced with, and the areas of bottlenecks were looked into and tried to see how this can be sustainable within the project. And then we looked for international and local partners to come to the aid of the network. And then we worked with other sites. And then, of course, we had to ensure that they have access to the internet. It's not easy. Working with the internet is not a concept that is known to all, so there's need for us to deepen their knowledge and build capacity for them and aid the women who don't have the means to be connected to the internet every month. And having this access, they will be able to have the maximum number of these women who will be able to participate without having to pay from their own pockets. We have tried to set up houses, which we refer to as women houses within the community, where they could meet, where they are living. This is what I wanted to share with you rapidly. I want to thank you for your very kind attention. And during the question and answers, I can give you more details. I thank you. I give you back the microphone. Thank you. Thank you for this very interesting presentation on Women Connect. I believe this has been very useful, and it's important for the participants to know what you're doing and what steps you went through to get to the level that you are as of today. It is also important to know at the community level that the women are adapting to their local needs. And the whole community can therefore bring together, pull together young women that will work together. And this obviously is very attractive within the community network.
Victor Asante, so that he tell us a little bit about his experience in Ghana, another West African country, and what they have achieved or tried to achieve to build a community network in Ghana. Victor, we can't hear you in case you're speaking. Victor, are you there? Victor.
Hello?
Hello. Victor?
Can you hear me, Dawit?
Yes,
hello?
Now we can hear you.
Oh, so sorry about that.
Okay.
Yes. Yes. Good morning once again to Dawit and then the rest of the panelists. Yes. Community networks, as properly defined by Verengai. I mean, Ghana, we don't have a community network in that straight definition. What we do have is a private initiative that has just begun to extend connectivity in some of these deprived communities. And so I'm going to relay the experiences that one network, that is STEP network, has initiated, for which I'm associated with. And so as an outline to the presentation, I will look at what STEP network has done so far, the rationale for the movement and what they seek to achieve, the project areas, the technical architecture supporting the enterprise, the achievements so far, challenges, and of course, I will entertain questions when they come. So the network is Samaboy Community Network, and it was established sometime this year, early this year, February, to be precise, 2021. And as I said, it's a private initiative and to extend connectivity to an area that has been determined to have little or no connectivity. And largely is a response to, as I said, data connectivity issues in that community. And it's an interesting community in the sense that if you look at the population strength of that community, it has close to about 30,000 people aside of the over 20 communities that adjoin that particular town. And so it is an area that is populous enough to gain the attraction of telcos. But it is also a paradox to find out that the connectivity within that area is not as you experience in other urban communities. So, as I said, I mean, these photos basically speak to the nature of assets that people have in the community. I mean, on the left side of the photos display, you see someone who's just have a phone on a wooden on a log to access voice connectivity. I don't believe that we would like to access community. We would like to access connectivity in such a manner. I mean, there's so meaningful connectivity that could actually be derived when one person is accessing connectivity in such a way. Then, of course, if you look at the second picture as well, I mean, this was captured in one of the household service that we embarked upon. I mean, the gentleman is fixing his telephone on top of the door. I mean, and in that whole household, that is the only place where a person could fix a device and then receive some level of connectivity. So, yes, I mean, these pictures actually amplify the kind of connectivity challenges that we have in remote areas. And as I said, this is not a typical remote area. We are talking about a community that has about close to about 30,000 people, then with some other medium to large scale enterprises within that environment. So what is it that STEP Network seeks to achieve by the private initiative that they've started? I mean, basically it's to improve internet connectivity in Samaboy as the key community. But of course, as I said, there are 20 or so more communities within that periphery, and that those communities are also largely excluded. And so as you extend connectivity to Samaboy, over a period, it might be scaled up to other communities within that enclave. Then again, it's digital literacy skills. I mean, we all appreciate the fact that you cannot have any, there wouldn't be any meaningful connectivity if people do not have this digital literacy skill to access connectivity. So basically, digital literacy skills are critical to ensure that there's an uptick in digital usage. Another arm of the initiative is to provide virtual learning system. Now, as you indicated, Dawit, the pandemic also gave us some insight into what the future holds. Actually, I mean, schools were shut down for close to a year, and schools within urban areas were able to impart academic, undertake academic activities by virtue of virtual learning systems. And in communities that were outside of urban areas, I mean, one may question, I mean, how were they able to survive? I mean, how were they able to attend schools? I mean, have literacy, academic education. I mean, many of them were largely cut out, not because they were unwilling, but because there was no connectivity. There are other intervening factors as well, but principally it's largely because there was no connectivity in those areas. And so one of the objectives of this enterprise is to ensure that we provide a virtual learning system so that in times of need, I mean, we can rely on this system so that no child, no matter where you find yourself, you are not disconnected from the overall academic program. And so this is the project community, as I said, Boy is the main beneficiary of the intervention, but there are close to about 20 communities within that enclave. So many of these communities are very active communities with enterprises, medium to large scale enterprises. And these enterprises are all suffering on account of minimal connectivity. And this is the technical architecture that has been developed by STEP Network to support the intervention. It's a point-to-point network. Unfortunately, I'm not too techy, so I cannot go into details in respect of the technical aspects, but it is a point-to-point technical project. And then if you look at on the right side, that is a Google video of, well, let me say Google picture of the community. So these are the physical elements that have also been provided to support the exercise. I mean, you have a server, and then these are servers that are, some are mounted on tall buildings within the community, for which the connectivity are extended from point to the other point, up to the time that they get to the last mile. So what has been the achievement so far? I mean, let me emphasize that since STEP Network commenced this work, it has largely been more or less a trial project. So far, connectivity is being extended in these areas, but it is not commercial as yet. So it is still on trial, and then to ensure to ascertain whether the technical elements that have been provided will be able to meet the demand. And so far, this is just a brief snapshot on the story that so far has been seen. And active users online as of yesterday, and these are people, as I said, are enjoying the service free. And as of yesterday or so, we had about 30 people who had logged on about close to midnight yesterday. We had just about 30. Oh no, I think I'm using a different slide. But as of yesterday, for example, we had about 30 or 35 people online close to midnight who were accessing the services. Typically because it is a free service, we are limited to about like 65 people to enjoy the service as of now. As and when that the service become commercial, it is expected that will roll up to other areas. So the virtual learning platform that I earlier stated, this is the virtual learning platform that has been designed by STEP Network to provide virtual learning to students within that area. Let me also indicate that there is a potential anchor client, and that is Samates. And Samates is a major login company, and where they are located is largely unconnected. And so what STEP Network is doing has gained their attention that they are likely to be the major anchor client on the community network. And this is the payment system that has been designed, and it is expected, I mean, that the rates that have been indicated here, at least for the initial initial activities. I mean, this is going to be the bundle that people will be paying, the bundle cost that people will be paying for service. We reckon that this is a rural area, a semi-rural area, so the bundle cost cannot be too hard, that it becomes a disincentive for them to use the service. So what have been some of the challenges? I mean, this, as I indicated, is a free project as of now, and the trial period, the cost to step network in terms of the bandwidth is 3,500 Ghana cedis. That's close to about about $800 for a 5 megabit seconds unlimited bandwidth cost. And you can just imagine this is being shared by a number of users. And so if you are going to talk about meaningful connectivity where experience should be something to, if experience will be something to go by, then essentially we will have to increase this bandwidth. But then the key issue that arises might be the issue of cost. Is it the case that we are going to rake in enough to ensure that not for profit at least, but at least for the network to be sustainable? We've also encountered some electricity challenges over the period. That actually has also resulted in some of the UPS and the servers also going out. That is also one of the challenges that STEP network is encountering. And it's also very typical in very remote areas, because there are pretty much not many large enterprises. The energy situation happens to be a bit erratic in those areas. Then we also have challenges with the ISPs. I mean, many of these ISPs see these areas as not too commercial for them, and so service to those areas are not top notch, and that also affects the operators who rely on these ISPs for their activities. And so STEP network is also having its fair share of the inadequacies of the major operators operating in those areas. That's on one. That is a technical challenge, but there's another emerging challenge. And when STEP network engage the operators, one of the operators, to supply bandwidth for their activities, they initially agreed, but it was revealing along the line that they came up that realizing that the community has close to about 30,000 people. I mean, that actually was a potential viable community. But the reason why they've not deployed into that community was anybody's guess. And so when they realized that STEP network was going to buy bandwidth from them and then resell in these communities, they started feet dragging. And so it also became a major challenge. So you have to rely on another operator to provide us with service. And as I said, the service is about 3,500 cedis, Ghana cedis, which is equivalent to about $800 for just 5 megabits per second unlimited. And who are the partners supporting this intervention? As I indicated, it is a private. It's a purely private initiative as of now. And the anchor, potential anchor company is the Samates Cooperative Credit Union, and that is a credit union that operates within the Samates company, and they've expressed interest in partnering with STEP network, but the support that they envisage to provide is not something that will put the operations sustainable. And so the Universal Service Fund is also one entity that is being approached to support the intervention. They supported with 3 computers because they have a facility not too far from Samaraboy, and they were able to supply the STEP network with 3 computers to support its virtual learning project. Then, of course, the Internet Society. It is something that we will be discussing probably off this call, but let me mention that the Internet Society has been of great help to the Ghana ISOC team by advancing some funds for the establishment of a community network in Ghana. There's no community network, as I said, they're strictly defined per what Verengai said in Ghana. We don't have that type of community network where it is community owned, it's being managed by the community. It's always been an initiative by individual with some bit of profit motive. And so Internet Society Global came up with this small grant to assist the local chapter to ensure the establishment of a community network in Ghana. The focus of that support was largely advocacy and then stakeholder engagements, but we might be engaging Internet Society in the midst of COVID, where we are unable to have in-person meetings and all that. That is actually also stalling the process of engagement. And so we are likely to come back to Internet Society to request that the funds that they gave should be given to Step Network to boost their operations and ensure that they operate largely as a community network and deliver service to the rural areas where they are currently operating. So pretty much that ends my presentation. And as I always say with this slide, do we have an option to digital connectivity? We've all witnessed the ramifications, the consequences of the pandemic. I mean, since last year up till now, we are still not out of the woods. But the way forward is for us to go digital. I mean, we can beyond the health aspect. It is through digitalization that you can overcome the pandemic. And so the option for us, we don't have that luxury to rely on any other thing apart from ensuring that every community is adequately connected. And then, of course, there's meaningful connectivity in those areas. So thank you so much.
Thank you, Victor, for presenting yet another completely different community network. You have told us that there is an approach that might involve more the private sector. I see Kura's message that is, well, there are a role for the private sector, and I think you have given an answer to that. Now we are going to continue a little bit with the challenges. You mentioned some of the challenges that you have encountered in Ghana. Khoudia, can you tell us about the challenges that you encountered in...
Est-ce que vous pouvez nous dire les difficultés auxquelles vous êtes confrontés au Sénégal?
Les problèmes que vous avez eus, mais je pense que vous pouvez encore élaborer un petit peu en quelques minutes parce qu'on n'a pas beaucoup de temps.
Be able to do so in a couple of minutes, but we don't have that much time for me to delve into this subject. Thank you very much, David. Regarding the challenges that we've had when it came to implementing the project, we tried to look for local partners because the project was financed, as I said, by USAID. And SenChix also was able to support us financially. However, local partners that we targeted, operators, of course, since they're the ones that are giving us a connection, the agency of information, state information, but there's also a question that is, did we talk to the fund? No, we only targeted internet access providers and certain structures that were also within the technology. We did send them mails so as to get equipment support, for example, antennas that we use to extend the network, but we have not had any local support so far. And this has been the main reason for this obstacle. When it comes to access to internet that we're able to have throughout the duration of the project, let's say when we launched the project in 2019 November, 6 months later, we really needed to find another means of access because the first phase of the project came to an end. Now we are on the third phase of this project, and we will try to look for more local partners so that we'll receive more support. But the real worry that we're facing is that the operators feel that we're taking part of their business. So they feel challenged, and it is a model that is not yet acknowledged and understood in Senegal. And I think it would be good that structures sort of ISO to hold panels so as to raise awareness amongst the operators. What we really want is that we want everybody to be connected at an affordable and reasonable cost. And for the disenfranchised community, they'll be able to connect themselves without having to pay more. And this was, in summary, the main obstacles that we have to deal with. Now we hope that with phase 3, we'll be able to find better solutions. Thank you very much.
Je pense maintenant je vais inviter Verengai.
I think I'm going to invite Verengai so that he will present to us, introduce to us. Okay.
Je vais parler anglais pour que Verengai puisse suivre. Est-ce que M. Verengai peut nous parler un peu du réseau communautaire de ESOC? Est-ce que vous pouvez nous présenter les difficultés auxquelles vous êtes confrontés et qu'est-ce qu'on a besoin de faire pour pouvoir réellement lever ces obstacles qui jonchent sur votre chemin pour la réalisation de ce projet? Est-ce que vous m'entendez? Je vais
put the discussion into one moment. One moment, just bear with me.
There is someone who's telling that the translation is not working, and I guess it's from French to English. Interpreters, is there any issue?
I'm trying to check in one moment. Looking in the chat to see if the interpreters are still around to reassign. Kindly bear with us 1 minute.
OK. Est-ce que vous m'entendez, moi?
Can I move on or I should wait a bit?
Is the French,
est-ce que le français fonctionne?
les francophones vous entendez?
Est-ce que les francophones m'entendent?
Oui, oui, bonjour, on vous entend.
Oui.
OK.
On peut continuer s'il y a un problème.
English interpreters?
Yes, we can hear.
Okay, good. Then let's continue.
Okay, thanks, Dawit. Yeah, I'll quickly just talk about this solution, or in fact, this tool, or an essential tool that we think might help address some of the issues that my two colleagues have mentioned. And I'll quickly do that so that we can have also we will have a bit of time to have some interaction and discussion. So looking at some of the issues that my colleagues have mentioned, that the way community networks are structured in different environments, in different countries, in different regions, it varies very rapidly. And at the moment, it's very difficult sometimes to see or to be able to follow an example of an existing CN. So you may see that in some areas, a CN may take a structure of a private organization, in some instances, it can take the frame of a not-for-profit organization. In some cases, even a community-oriented organization. So, late last year, we decided to develop what we are calling a readiness assessment toolkit, which toolkit we believe is going to help communities do a few of the things, such as, firstly, before you undertake or before you undertake the process of developing a community network, we think that it is very important to be able to look at some of the things that we believe are the core elements of a community network. And I'm going to briefly just talk about these issues, the 6 elements that we think are very critical in addressing or in developing a community network. So this toolkit, briefly, what it does really is, firstly, to identify the critical stakeholders to assess whether a community and its partners are ready to develop a community network. So in the case of in West Africa, I think from the presentation my colleagues have mentioned, there are still a very few countries that have had initiatives. The successful stories that we also know from our reading are all places like Nigeria, where they've for quite a few years been running some successful CNs. But we are hoping that this toolkit will sort of serve the community at large, as well as all the partners, to be able to navigate the process. Firstly, the regulatory and policy framework, the technological issues, the organizational issues, as well as the most important aspect of a CN, which is the sustainability aspects. So we are almost complete. This is something in the making. So you should be able to expect the final toolkit in the next 3 to 4 months. Hopefully by the end of this year, we are hoping that all of our communities in the African region will be able to make use of this toolkit, which toolkit is composed of 4 documents, a workbook that can guide any partner that wants to get into this process through a practical process of evaluating themselves if they are ready to take such an endeavor. It also has some tools that looks at financial viability, and also a tool that is used for purposes of engaging with the communities. So the community engagement process is very necessary. So these are some of the 6 elements that we've highlighted in this toolkit. So firstly, the community, the function and the services of a CN, how it's structured in different places from our experience in Africa, the telecommunications framework, and also issues to do with the network itself and the spectrum issues. Fourthly, we also look at the technical considerations that you'd need. So looking at things like topology and other, the equipment, the kind of equipment, how to source it, and all those issues. We also look at, we cover in this toolkit strategic issues such as the organizational structure itself, looking at the most successful CNs and how they are structured formally or legally. And this is, I think, a very important aspect in thinking about a community network. And then lastly, we look at the financial aspect. Maybe just briefly going into some of the issues. When we look at the community, we are trying here to define the roles that the community should play in a community network, and most importantly, identifying those champions in almost all of the communities where a successful community project is implemented. They are usually the champions. So identifying those champions and the specific roles those champions are likely to play in a community network. when we look at the services and the function of a community network, we also look at the value proposition. So this section touches on those the specific roles that a community network would sort of serve its community with. In some of the cases, we have seen community networks expanding beyond just providing the connectivity, but also providing very essential skills in the digital space, like digital literacy. In some of the cases, even providing, emerging technologies such as supporting services to either agriculture or to health services. So we are looking at e-health and e-agricultural services. So we have seen examples, and we try to document all these services that a community network could possibly provide. And this is very important and very essential, especially if you are looking at the sustainability aspect of a CN. With the frameworks, we also look at what are the regulatory issues.
Verengai, can you try to wrap up in 2-3 minutes okay, so that we have some time for questions and answers?
Okay, that's so with regards to the we're also looking at, I think, some of the issues that my colleagues have mentioned, policy and regulation. I've also seen in the chat that this is a very interesting discussion for most people. The technical concept, the partnership, ownership of a CN is very important, and having it legally registered is a very important aspect for attracting investment. Again, I've seen some colleagues mentioning this in the chat. And then, of course, the sustainability component, very key in managing a CN. So these are some of the issues that we cover in the toolkit that's coming, and we believe that it may address some of the issues that some of our CNs are having. I think, Dawit, let me pause here and open the discussion. Maybe we can have some interesting discussion to aid to this presentation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Verengai. This document is really very important because it really answers to some of the issues that almost every community network encounters. We have already heard some of these challenges from Victor and Khoudia, and this is that, these problems occur in most, if not all, community networks. So I do hope that they will be really like the Bibles of community networks, that they can use them to address the challenges that they encounter. I don't want to stop without having a session for questions and answers. Therefore, now you have the possibility to ask questions to the panelists. I have seen some questions in the chat room that have been answered for most, but I encourage you to ask a few questions in live as well. Anyone who wants to ask a question, please raise your hand. You have the option to raise your hand in the reactions. You can go to reactions and then you raise hand. Si vous avez des questions, vous pouvez aller.
If you have questions, you can go to the question and answers box, or you can just raise your hand under reactions if you have any questions for the panelists.
Hello, Dawit.
Yes.
Yeah, this is Victor.
Yes, Victor.
Yes. First, let me commend your team for this excellent work in respect of the toolkit. I mean, it is something that will go a long way to solidify the implementation and the running of community networks across Africa. My only concern, and I've not seen the document, so I don't know whether it's been addressed, but if you look at East Africa, where community networks are actually fairly grounded, and if you compare that with West Africa, you realize that we have not been able to come up with CNs for whatever reasons we are yet to fully understand. I want to find out whether the option of a private partner, a public-private partnership model is also considered under this toolkit, because if you look at what, for example, Step Network is doing, I mean, and this is something that a private person realized that there is need in the community, and waiting for government and waiting for telecom operators to advance connectivity in those areas are not forthcoming. And so if that initiative is done, how is the toolkit and then ISOC in general able to accommodate that in this community, in this assistance to community networks?
Thank you, Victor. I'm really sorry that the French interpretation doesn't seem to work. I hope that you understand at least part. Okay, so they're saying one moment. Okay, we will continue. In the meantime, I think there is Enoch who would like
bonjour. On vous attend. Yeah.
Good, merci.
The French is working, so there's no problem.
Please, my question is on the CNs. I think most of the CNs are established at places where the telcos have not yet reached or they don't have service there. So I want to ask, from the experience with regards to the East African operations, how has it been when the telcos happen to provide network at a place where a CN is existing? Does it affect?
Okay, I don't know if you have finished your question, but I think we can get it. So in case you didn't hear what
has been the interaction in the country very much?
Okay, Enoch, you are in and out, but I think we got your question, and which is a very relevant and interesting question. What happens if an operator starts operating in an area where there is a community network? Can anyone answer to this question?
Yes, Dawit, I can give some examples of what happens in real life situations when this happens. So in most cases where we do have CNs, we have seen that there are big operators that have acknowledged that community networks could actually provide a solution. So what they actually do in places like Zimbabwe and in Kenya and also in Uganda is that they actually provide the backhaul connection to the CN. So it may be sometimes in a fiber connection that reaches maybe a small town, but from that small town, the community networks is able to take it further using either satellite or other technology to those areas that the big telco operator is not able to reach. So in most of the cases, they are very win-win partnerships that are agreed, and also the cost implications. Sometimes the big operators, especially in Zimbabwe, also has to cover the costs as a way of social, what do you call it? So they understand that the connectivity has to reach those areas, but as a way of their social responsibility also, they provide this service. But in the same way, also sort of break even in terms of the cost implications. So in most of the cases, this is how we see the partnerships going on.
Well, to add to what Verengai said, I hold an opinion that if an area is considered a greenfield, and for several years there's not been any connectivity by any of these big operators, and you have the community network fully into that area, taking all the risks and amidst the sustainability challenges and all, is it possible that we could have an issue of policy where those areas that were initiated those by a community network, those areas will be sort of ring fence for the community networks to operate, although they might be enjoying the backhaul support from the major operators? Because I don't think it is fair that community networks will take all the struggle, and then later on they will just be hyped off the market share like that. But there is also another aspect which I think should also be considered by other community network operators. Yes, the operators will typically come and then extend data and voice connectivity. But then there are other sub-activities which the community networks could cover as niche areas. For example, digital skills training. And in areas where there is connectivity, but you don't have the digital skills to match up with the development. If people don't have the digital skills, how will they be active in digital use? And so the community networks could now decide that yes, they might not be engaged in the extension of connectivity, but they might look at these niche markets by offering digital literacy skills, virtual learning platforms, and other soft aspects as well. Thank you.
Thanks, Victor. Maybe to add my thought on that, I think it's a little bit like, in other areas, like, for example, if you have small shops in an area and then you have a big supermarket that comes in that area. Sometimes, yes, those shops suffer and sometimes they might go out of business. But in many cases, they find their ways. They, they have their own niche of clients. They have, the proximity sometimes that the big shops, the big supermarkets don't have. So it happens that community networks might suffer, but in many cases, I think they can adapt. But I have to admit that we don't have enough experience to say exactly what happens. And this is something maybe that we'll learn more in the future. There is one participant, Mark Carvel, who has been very active in the chat room. And he said that he's in a public space and he can't unmute. And he asks, can Internet Exchange Point provide support for community networks on, for example, on technical issues and reducing costs? So if you can answer to that question, do you have any experience of IXPs supporting community networks? Maybe I can start with that because just coincidentally, yesterday there was another session where not at the West African IGF, but in another conference, where I heard that in Georgia, that is in former Soviet Republic, the IXP was working to support the community network. So definitely the IXPs have the technical abilities, and they often have the mission to connect more people. So I think they are natural allies for community networks. They might not be close enough to most community networks. That might be the greatest challenge, but otherwise I'm sure IXP would be sympathetic and helpful to community networks. What could be, Victor, you can speak, Victor.
Well, I am also looking at the potential implications for the survival of community networks when strategies, I can see that coming up in Ghana pretty shortly, strategies like digital roaming, I mean, as they come up, I mean, what will be the potential impact on community networks? Is something that I think that probably is we should be looking at as community networks activists.
Definitely. So I'm sure that the community networks have a major role to play in the digital transformation strategies of that many African countries have, because you cannot talk about digital transformation without having everybody online. So I think community networks have a major role to play in, I think, in the near future. I think we are almost at the end of our session. The organizers, I think, would like us, maybe might need a minute or two. Are you there? Okay. So I think I can close this session. Generally, I think at least in a previous session, they want to have a picture of the panelists. I don't know if Victor, Verengai, and Khoudia, you can switch on your cameras and then you can try to have